last night, I inadvertently ended up in a backstage Zoom room with Dame Sian Phillips.
Dame Sian Phillips? Yeah. Wow.
I went to see this online show that was being broadcast from the Bristol Old Vic, but with lots of guests parachuting in.
Yeah.
One of them was Dame Sian Phillips, who was doing a reading. And there was a magician that was performing, and he asked for volunteers. And I said, I'll do it. And then halfway through the show, the Zoom kind of like did this weird thing, and then suddenly opened up another window, and then I was in the room.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it on purpose?
Well, that's what then happened, and then I did this bit of interaction with the magician, which was quite uneventful, actually.
Oh, was it?
It was quite exciting to be on a Zoom call with Sian, because I've always really liked her.
And what was she like?
Well, we didn't actually communicate in the Zoom room; just waved.
Okay.
But that was like the highlight of the week.
Right.
And then what else have I been up to? I've got my neighbour's ice cream in my freezer at the moment, if you get a bit peckish.
Okay. What flavour is it?
It's Haagen-Dazs.
Ah, yeah, Das Hagen.
Yeah. I said to her, because she said the other day, oh, well, I've been meaning to ask you about your fridge. And I was like, I was wondering when you were going to bring that up. Because when I first moved into this flat, she just kept going on about her fridge all the time, because it was like on the brink of not working.
Right.
So Annette Curtin's my drag queen identity.
Yeah.
Sings a song that goes, her next door, she loves to chat. I'm always trying to get away from that. She was going on about her fucking refrigerator. I said, I wrote that song about you. And she was like, she was a bit confused about that. But then the next day she said, can I put my Haagen-Dazs in your freezer?
Okay. And what flavour is it?
I think it's Praline.
Okay. It's not my favourite.
Okay, well.
Is it? Can you tell her to get cookie dough dynamo next time?
I mean, it might be. I haven't looked. I tried to.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, should we start the show?
Yeah.
Welcome to What? That Old Queen, a candid and adult take on queer life quandaries at a certain age. So please listen at your own discretion. Presented by Bernie and Tommy, their views are their own and in no way reflect those of any service you may hear this program on. Now, let your ears be upstanding for the Old Queens.
Well. It's our 40th episode, Tommy.
Happy 40th, Bernie.
I know, we've come of age.
Feels good, doesn't it, to be 40?
Yeah, I quite like it. It feels weird that we've done 40 episodes.
I mean, it's been over a year, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's just
a year and a half.
Just about 17 months, I think, since we started, and we've had a few breaks as well. So here's to us for having a bit of bubbly.
Cheers,
and thank you to everyone who's listened and supported us over the last year or so, and contributed to the 5,625 downloads that we've had.
And you've been doing a bit of moonlighting this week, haven't you, on someone else's podcast?
Yes, I have. I was on the Lost Spaces podcast talking about a club that we've talked about a lot on this podcast, but Horseplay.
And how did you feel talking about going out clubbing? Did it make you feel itching to go back?
I kind of miss it, don't you? Yeah.
Have you worked out what you're going to wear when you walk into the nightclub?
I guess it's going to be it depends what kind of night it is.
What weather-wise?
Yeah. Well, I meant the club.
I got this fantasy of wearing a backless dress.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, we talked about, on the Lost Spaces thing, we talked a lot about the Horseplay Goes Cruising, where you and I were dressed up in not very usual garb for us. And I was looking back at those pictures as well that we took in the gents' toilets.
Yeah, an impromptu photo shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that look.
Yeah, are you going to reprise it?
If I can still fit into the swimming costume.
Yeah. Was it a swimming costume that you had on?
It was like a lady's swimsuit.
Yeah, and you had fishnets and a blonde wig and
a mouth guard.
A mouth guard.
Which made smoking impossible.
Well, did you have to take it off for smoking? I can't remember.
I don't think it was impossible. I just think it was just a bit more difficult.
Do you think we could do this podcast with mouth guards on?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe that's our challenge for our 50th episode. It's interesting being on somebody else's podcast because, as you know, I edit everything for hours, and when you hand that over, your conversation, and things are chopped around, it's kind of weird because you don't have any control over that.
Well, that's why I don't listen.
Yeah, but I don't actually swap ours around very much. I keep most of it as is. I mean, I think I have done in the past where we've interviewed people, and I've made things flow a little bit where the conversation is detracted from where we were at, and I've cut it into another part. But I don't do that very often. I kind of keep it as true to the conversation as we have. And that was the weird thing, that a lot of things seem to be out of context in the interview. And one of the things that I have a bit of bee in my bonnet about ageism, which came out of a question that Kay Anderson asked me, which he didn't include the question in the podcast, but we can include it today. But what were you going to say?
I think I was going to talk about Meghan Markle's.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about Meghan Markle.
Well, I just wondered if she... I guess she's happy with the edit.
I don't know. I mean, are we going to comment on this? What do you think about the whole thing?
Well, I have lots of opinions. I hate this idea of being in one team or another because it just feels so binary.
Yeah.
But I do think that it exposes a lot of racism, but particularly actually in not just the press, but also how the general public consume the press, really.
Yeah.
So they are giving what the general public want, but we seem to have forgotten that Harry was dressed as a Nazi recently. Well, not recently, but, you know.
He went to a party dressed as a Nazi officer, didn't he?
Yeah.
Or Adolf Hitler? I can't remember which one.
I don't know. It just seems a bit, yeah.
I mean, Hugo Boss designed those outfits, right?
The Nazi costumes.
Yeah. No, it was the SS uniforms that he designed, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think historically. So, I mean, maybe he's just a design queen.
Yeah, I mean, it is a strong look.
It's definitely a look. But, yeah, it's interesting. And the whole Piers Morgan thing, obviously, as well.
Yes, I love that. I just absolutely, creamed that up. He's such a vile man. And then just to see him getting a bit of taste of his own medicine.
Yeah.
Just brilliant.
I've never been a big fan, I have to say. I haven't really watched it. The whole thing just didn't really surprise me that it happened with him. Didn't he date Meghan for a while as well? Was that another reveal?
Oh, is it? I've not heard that.
Yeah, I've read somewhere that he dated her, and there might be a bit of baggage from that. That's
a weird situation, because he's like a really old man, isn't he?
Well, yeah. Well, as a bit of casual ageism, which we're going to talk about today. Yeah, I feel I mean, obviously, each to their own. You can have a relationship with someone, whatever age, but I don't think I want to date Piers Morgan.
No.
Have they talked about it on Loose Women?
Oh, all the time.
Oh, right, it's constant.
Yeah. Every day they was sort of having a different take on it, really. But
right.
Yeah, there was. I mean, actually, Loose Women is really good because it does try to get a diverse range of women's voices, and a lot of those women are women of colour, particularly vocal about the interview, I suppose.
Yeah.
But Jane Moore, maybe I'm getting into too much detail, but I think she's a sort of Daily Mirror columnist.
Yeah.
Yeah, she seems pretty vile about the whole thing.
Well, I think it's good to spark debate.
Yeah.
And it's good that people are talking about the issue. It's just as long as there's the correct outcome from it.
Well, I think that the weird thing is that people are surprised by it, whereas actually it's not that surprising that those beliefs are still withheld.
Yeah, totally. It's just, I mean, look at what we've had with Brexit, and since then, hate crimes on the increase and stuff. There is something intrinsically wrong with our society that we still have these issues, and America does as well, And I think, again, I think that's going to be part and parcel of some of the things I want to talk about in ageism today.
I mean, ultimately, just to go back, I just wish Meghan and Harry well. I think that they need to carve out their own lives and make a happy place for themselves.
And they should be allowed to do that.
Yeah.
And as everyone should, whether they're a part of the royal family or not. You either buy into... I mean, imagine being born into a job and you have to kind of do it, born into a role. There should be an out if you don't want to do it anymore, or it's too much for you. And yeah, let's wish them all the best for the future, and Piers Morgan.
Yeah.
Wherever he ends up.
And Madge.
Yes. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about ageism, because it's kind of been coming up to the forefront recently in conversation as well. And it was part of the Lost Spaces interview, where when I talked about going to horseplay when I was 40, Kay Anderson asked me, did I get any backlash because I was over 30?
How old is Kay?
I don't know. I presume like 30s.
Okay.
But I don't know. And I said, because I think we've had questions about this before, and I said I don't think that has much of a place in, whereas I think that was true years ago. That dead when you're 30 thing on the gay scene doesn't really exist anymore, but maybe it does. This is an issue for not just the LGBTQ plus community, it's an issue for everyone. So I was doing a little bit of research on this. I've got a couple of pages of this thing, so forgive me if this podcast turns into 3 hours. So in 2018, a Michigan State University online survey of respondents ages 10 to 89 revealed that most think middle age begins at 30 and that old age begins at 50. And a study from the University of Zurich, published in 2011, determined that older adults often try to avoid negative stereotypes of their age group by distancing themselves from their age group. Yet another study from Columbia University in 2018 found considerable evidence that when confronted with negative age stereotypes, older adults tend to distance and disassociate themselves from the negative stereotype of old age, which is weird because it's about our perception of old age, isn't it? And how the media is kind of perpetuating this. And we need to get out of this mindset, because a proportion of people aged 16 to 64 years has remained relatively stable for the last 40 years. But over the last 10 years, it's started to decline and is projected to decline even further in future years as a result of the growth of population of people aged 65 and over. The projection is continue to grow to nearly a quarter of the population in this country. A quarter of the population will be over 65 by 2046, for the whole of the country, and a quarter of the population of southern areas of the UK will be over 65 in 2035. So we have an ageing population. In stark contrast, the proportion of children in the UK population has declined from 24.5% in 1976 to 18.9% in 2016, and it's projected to decline even further in future years. So in 2019, it was 15%.
We just did an event in my day job at Theatre Bristol about emerging artists, or emerging at any age. So looking at how we think of artists as being young if they're emerging, whereas actually you can be an emerging artist when you're 60 or whatever.
Yeah.
And there was this academic that was talking about it, called Jo Cross, and she was saying that she likes to greet people with, instead of saying "How are you?" she likes to say "How are you? How are you aging today?" Because like the only thing that we've all got in common really is like, how's your aging?
Yes, I mean, this is the other thing. I mean, we'll get onto this a bit later on, but the average age in this country. What do you think the average age is? I mean, you know, because you've seen the script, but. What did you think before you saw the script?
I thought it was going to be about that actually, because because I've read up on it.
Right. So the average age is 40. So this idea of being dead when you're 30 in the gay world, you're cutting out a huge part of the population.
Yeah, and it's perfect for our 40th edition. Actually, also, I was just going to say that our special guest today is Simon Casson. Who's the co-founder of Duckie.
Yeah.
And if you go to a Duckie night, it's all middle-aged people.
Yeah.
Having a great time.
It's people from all ages, you know. And I think that's what has actually been the beauty of my experience from the gay scene as well. I've obviously not every bar and club, but a lot of them, there's a whole mixed bag of different people of different ages from different backgrounds, and you know it's a real melting pot of society, really, isn't it?
And also it's so dark in there, you can't tell how old anyone is.
It's really good for for looking younger. But it's going to, within 15 years, the average age is going to raise to 45 in this country. So the average life expectancy is currently 81.5 years, which will raise to 85 within the next 35 years.
Not much, though. Only a couple of years.
But when you think about the whole population is moving, how many more people will be staying alive? It's really interesting, isn't it? And actually, on the Ministry of National Statistics, or Agency of National Statistics, who are soon to be one of our sponsors because they might be giving me a job. So. Where I got some of these figures from, you can type in your age and your sex and it will tell you when you're expected to die, and they reckon my life expectancy is 85. Which brings me on to why, when you're 50, does everybody, like, are you suddenly getting adverts to think about your death when you potentially have another 35, 40 years left in you?
Well, I said it's partly, I think it's maybe to do with that you've only got a working life ahead of you of a short time, so you should start to save up for that.
Yeah.
Or think about that.
But I think that has to change as well. And as we have an ageing population, why aren't our perceptions of ageing changing? And what would happen if they did? So media depictions of older people are so stereotypical and unreflective of our population and how we're ageing. People are more youthful as they get older now. I know people in their 50s and 60s who definitely look like they're in their 40s now. So that depiction of like greying hair, short perm, being quite frail and ill and old when you're 60 or 65 is becoming less and less a reality for people. Yet we still have that stereotypical thing in our brain that that's what older people are going to be like.
What do you think you're going to be wearing when you're in your 80s?
Oh, I don't know. I think I want to age very disgracefully. I think I'd quite like to be quite eccentric. I probably think about what I'll wear. So before lockdown, I had a lovely lunch in London where I went to a jazz club in Soho at lunchtime, and there was a live jazz band playing. And on the table next to me was a group of older people who were all stunning. They dressed up to the nines to come and see this jazz band during the day, and they were the most lively, vibrant, intelligent, fun people.
My parents always go to that jazz club in Soho. What's it called?
Do they? I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, I think my point with this is, what would happen if our attitudes towards ageing changed, if we all actually relished the fact of getting older? Retiring wasn't such a thing. So if we included people into society more, like if they were doing jobs, they would continue to allow to work into their old age.
I think that people need to be given an option to be able to retire. I mean, at this moment in time, I can't imagine that I'd want to, but I think that some people, I think of my parents, I think I'm really pleased that you got to retire when you did, because they worked fucking hard all their lives.
Yeah.
And they were doing jobs that they weren't jobs that they were passionate about in that way.
Yeah.
So that they've now invested in things like the allotment and stuff like that they can really get their teeth into.
But it is like the grey elephant in the room that we don't like to talk about, which is why we have all these little ageism quips, because it's almost like that is going to protect us from getting older, but it doesn't. It's one thing that happens to all of us. And actually, if older people were welcomed into society, we have more of a dialogue with them. They're not expected to shut themselves away at a certain point. They're actually included into society. Then they feel like they're contributing and they have some worth. And maybe we could have like things like Brexit and stuff like that wouldn't happen. They wouldn't feel disenfranchised and think that society has forgotten them. And it's something that's going to happen to all of us, and we have an aging population. So we're all going to have to kind of work together in the future, no matter what age you're at. And I wonder what the statistics are. A lot of people have done research, and if people feel like they're contributing or they're included into society, they're fit and healthy for longer. I think even lockdown, we've been losing our memory a bit because we've all been shut away. I wonder what the figures on dementia would be if people were more included into society when they got older.
My parents are really frustrating because all they want to talk about is the Waitrose delivery, because it's the only thing that really is the big event of the week.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting, and I think what we go away from this is that we drop the ageism quips because that just perpetuates this. We think about how we portray and think about getting older and older people and how we can include them in our lives. But our guest is waiting, so we're going to have a little break and we'll be back after this.
Like this podcast? Want to help it to keep going? Well, now you can, by helping us grow our audience so we can get some actual adverts and sponsorship. All you need to do is share these episodes on social media. That way, we can get more listeners and keep on doing this podcast. In the meantime, if you've got some dosh to splosh, you can click on our Patreon link below and give it to us. Splosh, dosh, cost, it all rhymes. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Okay, so we're back. And Tommy, we've got a fabulous guest. So can you introduce them?
Well, I'm going to say what it says on the website. He's armed with the Cockney touch, a bag of combination therapy, and a suit like Paul Weller circa 1985. How are you doing, Simon?
I'm good, thanks, Tommy. I didn't think anyone read that. Tucked away down the back of the website. I have got the Paul Weller suits,
right?
But they're in the closet.
Keep it in the closet.
Yeah.
Oh, well, have you still got your blue coat from Pontins?
I never worked there, but I used to go there every year.
Oh, okay. Because it mentioned Pontins on your website as well.
Oh, yeah. No, I learned my trade at Pontins, meaning we went there every year when I was a kid, Pontins Canvas Sands. And Butlins was a bit common. We didn't go there. We went to Pontins, and it's where I learnt about entertainment. So we went there every year from when I was about 7 till when I was about 16. 16.
I once had a very unfortunate incident in a donkey derby in Pontins Cambersands in 1977. I don't like to talk about it. Were you there then?
I probably was there at the same time.
Did you push me off the donkey? Is that what you're saying?
I was winning in the donkey derby, and it is the story of my life. I was winning through most of the way through it, and then I came third, like right at the end. Wow. I just came third, and my mum was really disappointed. But I was winning all the way through, Bernie. I promise you.
Okay. Well, you're a winner tonight. I'm gonna say you're a winner of the donkey derby. I got thrown off the donkey. I'd never ridden anything before in my life. I think I was about 6. And the donkey trod on my leg, and the rest of the people in the race were the blue coats. So I think I should have won by default.
Thanks for asking me about Pontins. I loved it.
Did you?
Yeah, I loved it. It was lovely.
And so you're the art. Are you what do you call yourself? An artistic director or co-founder of Duckies?
Yeah, or producer. Co-founder. Yeah.
And
I call myself producer.
And so you can see a sort of synergy between Pontins, the world of Pontins, and what you produce at Duckie.
Oh, definitely.
Me too, actually, being part of it.
Really? There was a ballroom in the Pontins, and the big show was at 8 o'clock. They had bingo at 7, and then they had a big show at 8, and at 9, all the children did a march out of the kind of a parade march out of the ballroom and went home. And then they had the more risque shows in the ballroom later on.
Is that the inspiration for Duckie, the risque shows?
Yeah, the risque shows. Yeah. And years later, I used to hang out at the Royal Festival Hall, and I was like, wow, this is really like a Pontins, but for posh people. Because like it's all free, and you can walk from one room to the other room, but the people are kind of, and the carpet is kind of swirly pattern. And, it's very kind of 60s and 70s kind of looking. But the entertainment's a bit different.
And what was the most risque thing that you saw at Pontins, and what's the most risky thing that you've produced at Duckie?
I don't remember the specific shows. I just remember when they started the show in Pontins in the ballroom, the band would start playing, and it was just really, really exciting. It was kind of da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. Like it was, I don't know, this kind of the beginning of something at 8 o'clock, and it just seemed like a whole world was about to open up. I don't remember things being particularly risque, really. I mean, they had, the usual kind of 70s kind of probably sexist comedians on, I would imagine later on, The most risque thing we produced at Duckie, I don't know.
Because the last time I was there, it was after my show Haunted Existence, which you came to see at Battersea Arts Centre. And then we all went and saw Katie, who was emceeing that night, I think. And there was a film of her projected onto a white tablecloth of her doing a shit coming out of her arse on Catherine Hoffman's veranda. And you could just see the shit, like, slowly coming out of her bumhole. And everyone watched with absolute fascination and awe.
That's what we call gay entertainment.
Right.
So they didn't have that at Pontins, and they didn't have that at the Royal Festival Hall. So what we saw was a gap in the market.
Obviously, yeah.
Literally.
Can I just say your lockdown hair is marvellous, Tommy?
Thank you.
Marvellous lockdown hair. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I have been growing it a long time, but it's really just... I've been taking all the vitamins to make it thick.
It's coming into its own.
Good.
I like it. It's quite Yoji Yamamoto.
So it's 25 years of Duckie. When you started it, did you think it would ever last this long?
No, of course not. I don't think we had a clue, really. I think we thought it might last 4 weeks if we were lucky.
And has it always been at Royal Vauxhall Tavern?
Yeah. Me and Amy went there in 1995. Reg Fong or someone was on, someone like that, and it was really dead, and we thought, this is it, this is the place, because it's a bit sort of music hall-y, it's a bit like an old theatre, and a bit of a shiny floor, and also they let us do it, and they said, we got a Thursday night, so we were going to hire it on a Thursday night, and but then just before we began, they phoned us up about a couple of weeks before, and they said, we got Saturday free, you can have that if you like.
Wow.
And did you always work with the Readers' Wives, the DJs, right from the word go?
Yeah, right from the start. Because we knew what kind of music we liked, but we didn't know anyone who played it. But we all worked in First Out, which was a cafe in the West End. It's kind of lesbian and gay cafe called First Out. Do you remember it, Tom?
No.
Okay.
I don't think I was probably around then.
It's called First Out because it was the first gay out cafe in the West End, just before cappuccino culture went crazy. And then we were all working there in the early 90s. I worked there for 4 years, and I met Amy there, and she just got off the boat from America, and she said, "Hey, Simon, why don't you take me to the theatre one night?"
That's a really good impression.
And I took her to see a Harold Pinter play, and it was so bad. It was unbelievably bad, and neither of us understood what was going on.
But did you stick it through to the end?
We did. Good
for you.
Yeah.
Last Sunday I was on Amy's show because I always listen to it on a Sunday night on Six Music, and I always just love the thing that she does with the she picks a theme and then you have to say a suggestion for a chilled out Sunday track, and I always just text in because it's just a bit of company for me on a Sunday. And then she texted me saying, we'd like to have you on just chatting about I chose Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Because the theme was relaxation, I think. No, it was Liverpool. Yeah, it was Liverpool.
What did you say about the record?
I said it wasn't really very relaxed at all. It wasn't a chilled out track, but you might think it was by the title. But it is one of my favourites.
So Simon, a lot of our audience aren't actually based in the UK; they're all over the world. How would you describe Duckie?
Well, it's a night in a pub. It started in the 90s. It's been going every Saturday night from the 95 until lockdown, and then it died a death like everything else.
Yeah.
But we've got a date, actually. We're going to come back on the 10th of July.
Oh, amazing.
That's the plan at the moment.
And presumably you've done lots of stuff online during lockdown, or a few bits?
Not really, not much. We've done a bit. We did our 25th birthday party on Zoom, which worked quite well. But yeah, it's kind of rock music and performance art and hairy men. All my favourite things.
But
lots of booze.
You also do a thing called the Posh Club.
Posh Club, yeah.
Because we've been talking, in the first half of the show, we were talking about ageism. And so, tell us about the Posh Club and the Posh Dance Club and the Posh Bus.
Oh, the Posh Bus. So the Posh Club is, it was for my mum, really. So my mum passed away a few years ago, but before she went, we decided to make a club for her. She was 84. She'd moved from where we come from, which was Hackney in London, to this area called Crawley in Sussex, which is a bit deadbeat, and there wasn't much happening for people. In London, she'd go down to Royal Festival Hall, she'd go to all sorts of places. She did yoga, but when she went to Crawley, there wasn't really anything happening. So my sister put on a tea party for her in her house and invited her neighbour in, Esther, and her friend Frida, and they had a nice tea party together. And I said to and they really enjoyed it. And I said to my sister, why don't we kind of join forces and we'll hire a hall up the road. You do the tea and the cakes and make it all nice. I'll put on some cabaret. We'll ask everyone to dress up. And that was the concept, really. And that was about 9 years ago. And then now we got 5 of them. We've got one in Crawley, one in Hackney, one in the Elephant Castle, one in Brighton, and one in Hastings. And so it's like Duckie, but it's for people in their 90s, 80s, and 70s. And it's tea rather than lager and scones. And it's in the afternoon. So it's a kind of afternoon cabaret club and disco dance floor for people over 65.
It sounds amazing. And there's been some research into how this helps older people's health and engagement. So what were the outcomes of that?
Well, in this country, like a lot of people kind of leave their older, like a lot of people are a little bit kind of estranged from their families, or people don't all live together, do they? People often live in different towns. A lot of kind of, my mum was quite lonely, she moved to Crawley to be near my sister, and I used to see her once a week, but we thought that we would create like the arts generally tends to be for kind of the arts, like theatre or, kind of galleries or art centres or things like that, tends to be more like for middle class people, would you say?
Yeah.
I thought there was a kind of, and it's a bit kind of with the Pontins, we talked about Pontins earlier. I thought that there was a kind of a way to do this that's really specifically for working class people that was just kind of like a lot of fun. So we set it up with that in mind. So it has, it's very kind of popular forms, and it's very influenced by the kind of thing that was on at Pontins, I suppose. It's very social.
You often have the Black Elvis, don't you, there?
We definitely got the Black Elvis, yeah. And the Chinese Elvis.
Great. So often you work with queer performers, and it's Duckie is a queer-led organisation.
Yeah, queer-led, yeah.
Yeah, working with older people, not necessarily them being LGBT. Like, how does that mix, do you think?
Yeah, I think it really surprised us, especially, I just think it's a really beautiful combination. In Hackney, it's quite a big African Caribbean community, and they're quite churchy, and they're really, and like the churchy black women in their 80s, and they've massively embraced kind of the queers, or the young queer volunteers, and like, and also the performance, and there's a kind of total wildness about them, and it seems very modern and contemporary, and there just isn't any, we haven't experienced any kind of prejudice or,
great.
It's very much kind of thing of its time, I think.
And has it changed your perception of an outlook of getting older doing the Posh Club?
I really like getting older. I really hated being young. I like nightclubs and, having fun and things, but I think it's much easier. Don't you think it's easier to get older?
Yeah, totally.
Being young is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't really know yourself very well, and I think as you get older, you kind of, I don't know, you ease into your body and your personality, don't you?
More insecurities, I think.
For me, it was quite an anxious time, I think, and I only really got happy when I kind of got into my 40s, and I only really met a kind of boyfriend type person when I was 45. I'm 54 now, but when I was 45, I went to gay speed dating.
Amazing.
And I had boyfriends in the old days and girlfriends, but God knows what that was all about. But then I met the person that I kind of got with properly, and maybe I was ready to meet them when I was 45, which is crazy, yeah.
And is that your boyfriend now?
Yeah, so we've been together for 9 years. But I think before that, I think I was too insecure in myself to kind of make something work.
Right, yeah.
And I don't know, I just worry a lot less than when I was young.
Yeah.
And I like older people, I think. And also being in an audience of older people, like when you put on some artwork, like a performance or a piece of music or something, and just the way they kind of pay attention or engage with it, it's very kind of thoughtful. And it's just, sometimes in the Posh Club, sometimes it's really wild, and you have like outrageous acts like naked ballet dancers and whatnot, and they love all that. But sometimes you might have kind of a piece of opera on, and it's just the way that somebody with 80 years of experience the way they listen to something.
Yeah.
And the kind of depth of the way that they're experiencing an experience, like the way they're kind of respecting something or meeting it. And I think that, sometimes you get, it's interesting about audiences, there's the kind of wonderment of like children, a puppet show kind of audience. And there's the kind of deep kind of maturity of a kind of older audience. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very interesting to kind of think about these kind of things. And it's a real gift to be able to provide that for people.
That is one of the things that I find terrifying sometimes about performing in Duckie, is the audience are not always with you. Sometimes they can just be stood right at the front, but on their phones or something. So you kind of have to grab them, don't you? You have to do something really short and punchy and dynamic.
Yeah, if Amy catches them on their phones, though, she gives them a clap round their ear with her handbag, and she's been in like kind of more or less fist fights with audience members before over the 25 years to tame them and to make sure they're arts friendly. But yeah, I think everything we do has that social thing where the audience are kind of they're supportive, but they're also free, and they're not in the dark in rows of seats chained to their seat. Like there's a kind of lively, dare I say, a bit Pontins kind of atmosphere that runs through everything that we do. You'd never catch us sort of doing a show at Bristol Old Vic, no offence. But do you know what I mean? We wouldn't do that kind of thing where audiences sit in seats in the dark in the theatre. It always has to be the relationship. The relationship is dynamic. Unfortunately, sometimes with the pub, you get somebody coming in and maybe they're not paying attention, but normally Amy sorts them out.
When I say, it's scary, but it's also really exciting.
Yeah, dynamic, and there's a kind of tension. And I can't get on with the fourth wall myself. The fourth wall, like between you and the audience, between the audience and the show.
Yeah. So it's almost ignoring the fact that they are there. Yeah,
I've always felt uncomfortable with the fourth wall, or a little bit alienated. Like I don't really go to. I love your work, Tom. I've seen a few of your shows, and I think they're beautiful. And they've often got a fourth wall, haven't they? But
there's an element of me being a storyteller, talking directly to the audience. And there's with King's Cross Remix, everyone comes up on the end and has a dance with me on the stage. Yeah.
I love that show. I love that kind of performance art, but I don't really like plays, that kind of fourth wall plays where actors pretend to be somebody else. I always feel a bit uncomfortable.
So what you prefer is more akin to something like a music hall type of performance in a way.
Yeah, music hall definitely. A lively audience. Maybe sometimes they might seem a bit frightening, but the tradition of the working men's club.
Yeah.
The tradition of the pop concert, the pantomime. All these things I feel comfortable in, the Pontins. I don't feel so comfortable in, A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yeah. Well, we hope you feel comfortable tonight on What That Old Queen. Thank you for joining us in the throne room. We're going to move on. Can I just ask you, where are you? It looks like your computer's in a cardboard box or something.
This is a spare room in Brighton. I moved to Brighton a few years ago. Is
it just a shelf?
The rent's really expensive, so I thought I bought a box. No, it's a shelf.
Amazing. Okay, well, Simon, thank you so much for being on the show. Yeah, you're going to stay with us to do some Queens of Agony and put your two penneth in. Okay, I'm going to do a big gong, because that's what I do.
Good.
At this point. And I'm going to include you, as you're of a similar age, I'm going to include you in the Old Queens pantheon, Simon. So, dear Old Queens, any advice for a first date I'm very nervous. Actually, I think you might be really good for some of these questions, considering what you just said about your relationship. So I've been texting with this guy for about 2 weeks, and we are finally getting to meet up for drinks. I'm 28 and really nervous about meeting him. I don't have a lot of experience dating guys. This will be only my 3rd date with a guy, and I only had one serious boyfriend. I've only recently become comfortable with my sexuality, although still not really out. I thought I'd try dating again. Also, we both made it clear we're looking for a relationship. I also don't actually drink, which I told him, and he's fine with that. Any words of encouragement or advice for first dates? Wow. What was your first date like, Simon? Well, you speed dated, right?
We did. I did speed dating, and I said to before I met my boyfriend, we went speed dating. I only went once. I met him, and then I haven't been back since. My advice would be to try to be yourself and try to show your vulnerability. I remember thinking to myself, before I went to speed dating, don't show off, give it the big one. Try to kind of be vulnerable, which is kind of hard to do. I think kind of naturally I prefer to kind of be a bit showbiz and all that and sort of scare people off. But it's quite hard to be vulnerable with new people, isn't it?
Yeah, it's scary.
Try to get in touch with your vulnerability. Or
I'm sure people have said to me when I've been on a first date, like, be yourself, but not that much.
I always think a first date is a little bit like having a job interview, which I guess is a little bit what speed dating's like as well, isn't it? Because you go around talking to people and asking them certain questions, and it feels
very formal.
Yeah,
it was quite formal, which I liked. That's what I liked about it, really. Because in the old days, it was just, you'd just be really drunk. You'd be in a nightclub, be really late, and then you just, put your tongue down their mouth and go home with them. Whereas I thought I'd try something different. Now I'm all older and sophisticated. So that's why I went to the speed dating and, tried to be authentic.
Yeah.
And have integrity.
Yeah. Well, this guy doesn't drink, so he's not going to be able to have any Dutch courage. But
I would say that, find somewhere that you feel really comfortable in to meet them there.
Yeah. Also, I quite like the idea of doing something on a first date. Like, rather than it just being you having a drink with someone, that you go and play crazy golf or something like that. So there's also a distraction. So it's not, the onus isn't just on having a conversation and asking questions all the time.
What's that film about the abortionist?
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
You know the one?
No.
It's really traumatic. My friend went on the first date with her boyfriend and saw that film. What's it called? It's the woman's name.
Oh, yeah. Vera.
Vera Drake.
Vera Drake. Oh, gosh.
Go and see Vera Drake.
I think cinema is a really bad date because you're not actually getting to know someone at all. That's like a 4th or 5th date. I don't think it's a first date.
My main advice to people would be don't sleep with them, like for at least 3 dates or 4 dates.
Okay. Don't put out on a first date.
Don't go home with them.
Yeah.
If it's romance, I mean, it's okay if it's just a hookup, like on an app or whatever people do.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for romance, don't sleep with them for a while, for a few weeks.
Okay, that's interesting.
That would be my advice.
Also, if you know that you're not going to sleep with them, there's less of that anxiety or expectation about that, so you can think about other things during the date. I think that's good advice. Okay, let's move on. I think we've given some good advice there. Okay, dear old queens, have you given up finding someone? I'm now 45 and I have had absolutely no success in finding another guy or anything. I can't even find a contractor to work in my house, let alone find a guy to build a relationship with. It's been 6 years since my last fling and another 8 years before that for a relationship. it just seems like nobody out there is for me in any capacity whatsoever. Am I alone, or have you had similar experiences? Well, you said that you didn't meet your partner until you were about 45. Was that right?
Yeah, I think this person's obviously got a lot of problems, and I had a lot of problems. I think there's millions of fish in the sea. I think there's millions of people that you can meet. I think it's about the person, why you're not meeting somebody. I think it's about what's going on inside. I think I wasn't ready to meet somebody until I was 45. I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but I think all the relationships I had up until I was 55 were disastrous.
Yeah. Well, I've had many successful relationships, as I like to say. And I haven't. Well, I guess I've had one since I was 45.
Are you a serial monogamist?
I think I was at one point, but no, I'm not particularly. I quite enjoy being single. I think I'm in a better position now than I ever have been to actually have a really good relationship. I just haven't met the right person for that. But I'm open to it, but I'm not expecting it. And I think that's another thing. This guy is obviously so fixated on getting a relationship that perhaps that's scaring people off, because people can smell desperation from a mile off, and they'll get scared of that. What do you think, Tommy?
I'm probably a bit like you. Like, I'm not expecting it. I'm open to it, but I'm really not expecting it, and I'm totally happy doing my own thing. I was speaking to a friend on Wednesday, and they were really trying to set me up with someone. I just felt a bit uncomfortable with the whole thing, really.
Those setups sometimes don't work at all, do they? Because sometimes people's ideas of what you might like in someone are completely wrong.
But when they said they were very financially secure, it sort of put a different spin on it.
Okay, well, do we need to get?
Are you one of these gold diggers, Tommy?
I'm not a gold digger, but you know, it would be quite nice, wouldn't it?
I think I'm going to go and buy a hat.
Well, they say it's an artist strategy, isn't it? It's a strategy for a performance artist, finding a rich boyfriend.
I mean, I should have been thinking. I mean, actually, when I was 17, 18, up until probably mid-20s, I was going out with someone that was very rich. And I just thought that was going to be, not necessarily that I was going to be with him all the time, but I did just always think that I was going to be with someone that was going to be a bit more wealthier than me. Didn't really think about it. I thought all gay men were rich.
Have you always relied on the kindness of strangers?
Some people make it a policy. Some people, I've got this friend, is a lesbian woman. She won't go out with anybody that is below her income bracket. Like, she's got a threshold, and they have to earn more money than her before she'd consider seeing them.
I had this awful gig once. It was the weirdest thing. It was so bizarre, but it was for the Maxwells, and they took me over to the south of France, and I had to perform in this villa, and all these super rich people came, and I was playing this sort of, I was actually playing an agony aunt, a sort of psychotherapist called Dr. Thomasina Marshfield, and I had these really awful people. One of them was like, I'm a CEO. I only date CEOs, but I've fallen in love with the guy that makes the coffee in my local coffee shop. What should I do?
That's the next question.
Was it really for the Maxwells?
Yeah, it was awful. I don't know really, I shouldn't have done it really.
You're like the Beyonce of your day, aren't you?
Posh people's parties. That's a gig, isn't it? Posh people's parties.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, I think, have we covered that one? Let's move on anyway.
I can't remember what the question
I can't even remember what the question is now. Okay. Obviously, take all of our advice with a pinch of salt. We're not professionals. So, dear old queens, do you have sex sheets with your long-term boyfriend?
Oh, I read this one. It's my favourite one.
Sex sheets, towels, blankets are a thing, obviously. I can't tell you the number of times that I've hooked up with a random guy and he's put down a sheet, towel, blanket before we get busy. Gay sex is messy, I get it. With my live-in long-term boyfriend, I thought it might be different, but we still put down a top sheet, specifically our sex sheet, in inverted commas, whenever we have sex. If you've had a long-term relationship, or partners, or fuck buddy, or if you're single, do you do the same? Or do you just have sex in your regular bed sheets? I'm not asking for advice, just weirdly curious.
It makes total sense to me, with the new person, the sheet thing. It makes total sense.
Yeah, with the new person, but what about with like in an existing relationship?
No, that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
I think you use your normal sheets for your boyfriend, and then if there's anything, for casual shags, you'd have a funny sheet.
Yeah,
I read that in the Gay Guide.
But the thing that just immediately what I was thinking about is, what about just on the sofa?
Yeah, what? Don't do it in the bedroom.
Well, I quite like just doing it on the sofa.
Yeah.
So,
but do you have a sex sheet for that?
No.
I think
you need a sex sheet for the sofa, Tom.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't this whole sheet thing take away some of the spontaneity of sex?
Yes.
I mean, I get it. I get the practicalities of it. I literally have never had a sex sheet in my life, either in a relationship or outside of one. I mean, I can just wash the sheets if they're dirty afterwards.
That's why I'm saying the sofa is tricky, because you can't wash the sofa.
Yeah, maybe you should have a little... Well, I've got a leather sofa. It's white clean.
Well, that's the answer. That's the answer. Don't do it on the bed. Do it on the sofa and get a white, clean leather one.
Do it in the sofa, in the hallway, in the kitchen, in the garden even. Wherever.
Well, now you can meet someone up in a park.
Yeah. Well, it's the only way to meet someone at the moment. It's the only legal way to hook up and have sex is outside.
Do they still do that, the gays?
Yes.
In the parks?
Apparently so.
Do they?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's illegal to hook up it's illegal to go into somebody's house at the moment unless you're bubbled with them. So if you're going to hook up with a random, the only less illegal place to do it is outside.
Mm.
So, but in how many days can we hook up inside? It's on your app, right?
I've got an app, yeah.
Okay, you got an app for that.
17th of May.
17th of May.
You can't meet up with you can't have someone at your house until the 17th of May. Do you realise that?
So it's...
I want my best mate to come and visit me and my boyfriend here. And he can't... We were talking about it earlier. I'm thinking about breaking the law. But he can't come to visit until 17th of May if you follow the rules.
That's crazy. Unless you bubble. I mean, if you bubble...
He's got a family that he's in a bubble with already, so he can't bubble with us.
Okay. But maybe you'll be vaccinated by then and it'll be easier. I don't know.
Yeah, I had my jab.
Yeah, I'm having mine tomorrow. Let's talk to my lawyers about it. Okay, final question. This is an odd one. So, Dear Old Queens, headline is self-attraction. So I'm curious about the normalcy of being attracted to oneself. I'm pointing this one to you, Tom. I've heard people call themselves cute, pretty, handsome, hot, sexy, etc. when looking at themselves in the mirror or such. But is it somewhat normal or okay to be turned on by oneself while looking at a naked picture of yourself? Or enjoy the view of your cock while jerking off, or looking at your ass in the mirror. I feel weird when this happens. It's like it's wrong, but maybe it's not. Have you, or do you know anyone else who has experienced this? Hopefully this question belongs here. If not, my apologies for sending it in to you. Signed off, Pink Narcissus. So... what do we think? Self-attraction, fatal attraction.
Yeah, I don't really know. I feel like I've experienced elements of that. I do always check out my arse in the mirror because it still looks quite good, although I say it myself.
Well, why wouldn't
and nobody else is seeing it right now.
Well, the trick is that you need two mirrors So you look at yourself in another mirror through two mirrors, and then you look like somebody else because you're looking in a complete direction. If you just look at yourself in the mirror, then you can tell it's you. But if you look at yourself naked through two mirrors, you look like somebody else. That's what I found.
So do you have you partaken in some self-attraction?
I mean, that feels like really practical advice.
I remember
Simon.
doing that. Joe Orton used to talk about that. He used to set up mirrors at funny angles.
Right.
And then he'd pretend that there was somebody else in the room. And so, yeah, I played that trick.
But that sounds like a good trick to have, certainly during lockdown if you're single.
Have you ever been with a lover that looks like a version of yourself?
Unfortunately not. I tell you what I have done, though. I've got off with people that have had those mirrors on the ceilings.
Oh, yes.
Once I had that, I loved that.
I loved that as well. Yeah, I've done that. I really liked it.
That's totally sexy.
Yeah.
I quite like mirrors. Yeah, I quite like it if you have like wardrobe mirrors and things like that, so you can kind of have a look whilst you're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's quite good. Or well, it used to be. I mean, at my age, maybe it's not so. Maybe it's not such a pretty sight anymore. At the wrong angle.
Sure, it's a beautiful sight.
Well, and in the words of RuPaul, if you can't love yourself, hey, how are you going to love somebody else? I mean, but maybe this guy's loving himself a little bit too much.
Yeah, but maybe that's what we all need to do a bit more of.
Well, I think we've definitely been doing it during lockdown, haven't we? Right. Well, on that note, I think we've come to the end of the show. Simon, thank you so much for being our guest. It's been a ball having you here.
It's been
it's lovely to talk to you. You two get on really well, don't you?
Well, it's all an act. We hate each other, really, but
your chemistry.
It's just for the show. So
it's nice that you said that, though, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Lovely,
working.
I can tell.
We're both performers. Oh, thank you, Simon, and thank you for being our guest and answering those questions, which were amazing. So, what was the date again for Duckie coming back?
It's open on we don't open until the 10th of July, but we've got an online Zoom thing called Duckie International on Saturday the 27th of March, if this comes out before then, so I don't know.
It's out on Sunday this week, so it will be. And
okay. Come to our Zoom, come to Duckie International. We've got performance artists from India and Brazil and Johannesburg and all over the world, because you can these days because it's all on Zoom.
Amazing. And where can people get tickets or get links or whatever for that?
Duckie.co.uk.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah. Also, but this is coming out on Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all the mothers that are listening. But Simon, thank you so much for being our guest. Please say goodbye to our lovely audience.
See you soon. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
And Simon, get in touch because you owe me a gig.
Oh, yes. Yeah, from 10th of July onwards.
Yeah.
Live at Duckie
soon. Great, Tom. We'd love to have you.
Right. Say goodbye, Tommy.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. We will see you next time on What That Old Queen.
You have been listening to What That Old Queen, written and presented by Tom Marshman and Bernie Hodges. The show was produced by Bernie Hodges for Hodge Podcasting in 2021. If you have a question for the Old Queens, or you'd like to be a guest, or you want to sponsor a show and give us lots of money, you can email hello@thatoldqueen.com or find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter.